Hello, hello. How are
Hi.
things?
Fine.
How are all the white ladies?
All right. I've been needing my distance, but from TikTok ladies, it's like realizing, okay, not all white ladies are the same. We know this because some of you guys stress me out, but I'm learning. I'm learning things. The white ladies there's like a special subset. There's a lot of things white women can do that black women cannot do, including like one, talk about being poor on the internet, talk about being broke on the internet. But there's something they do that it's not that black women can't do, but I've been thinking about the way ooh, let's do not disturb. They come online and talk about their husbands in like how they've been mistreated by them in a way. And then when the internet comes and says, "Hey, he's mistreating you. You should leave him." She comes back and then defends the
Super upset.
relationship as a whole. It's that part that confuses me because, like, there's one thing if you need validation, but then you're like, "You guys are stupid for you don't know." And that to me has been just sitting with me so weird because only a lot of women do it, only white for the most part. That
Yeah.
It's the pattern, and I love a pattern. And so I've been talking about it. I talked about it, a little bit on TikTok Live, but I put it on Patreon, and someone said it's a relatable thing they're trying to do. Like, be relatable maybe and talk to their fellow sufferers? I don't know. I've never understood certain social cues in that way when someone complains to you, but they don't wanna hear you say, "Oh, well, why don't you just" That's
Right.
my downfall. I'm good for a let's figure this out together. And that's not what they want. But I'm really good at figuring it out. So then it's almost like worse. But
It's
that's
even like
it's
I've
weird.
never understood the thing where they complain, where like women complain about their bodies
Mm.
out loud to other people, and it's a way to be like, "Oh no, you look great." Like that thing,
Yes.
like I've
Yes.
only ever been like, this
I
is
don't know
an
how to
actual, like I have all my body issues. I don't want to imply that I don't.
it's not, no,
I've never understood the whole like, "Oh, I don't like this thing."
it's the
And
out
it's not to
loud to
like
me part.
evaluate it or do something about it. It's just the like
Right. It's the now it's my
it's like
burden to
small talk somehow. Like part of
right.
white lady small talk is like putting your
Small
body down,
talk.
I guess.
Ooh, yeah, like, oh, he's like a pet at home and like, "Ah, hey, pooped on the floor." And then someone's supposed to go, "Well, mine, blah, blah, blah." I think that maybe that is that what it is? Because I've never been good at that. Or when they go,
It's kind
"I'm so
of.
fat." And I'm like,
That just makes me think of it as like that's like me complaining, like I complain about my dog to the internet all the time. I'm not gonna get rid of him. I'm complaining about him for fun or to commiserate or to like, you know,
"Oh,
we all understand having pets whose like personality doesn't really jive with you, but you still love them anyway. I guess to me that seems kind of similar. I don't know. I don't
yeah,
complain
no,
very
it
much
sounds
about my
exactly like
husband 'cause he's great.
right." Because also, if the response is to defend them anyway, I'm confused why you told us in a way. Because 'cause I'm not saying I've never complained about a man, you know? I'm
I
not
also
saying
think
that.
I think there's a cultural piece that, with like super gender norms back in the day, it was like you complain, right? Like boomers complain about the people they're married to. I don't know
Yeah.
I don't know why they all seem to have married people they don't like, but I think one of the differences that I notice with like millennials, it's like we like each other. Like we like the person we married. We like to hang out with them. We do things for them because we like them.
Yeah,
And
it gives, like, that
boomers
suffering thing
a
that,
lot,
like
yeah, there kind of seems to be this like, well, we're women, so we all got to put up with men that are just trash to us, and this kind of like that's where I get the commiserating piece of it.
yeah,
And
it's
it's
like
like it's a cultural thing handed down from when you couldn't leave them
but
when
see,
they were abusive.
commiserating, yes. Complaining, no, I feel like, you know? Like, I like commiserating because I love observational humor, so I'm complaining but I'm also doing something by talking about it. I don't know, but, like, it's just very interesting. But I do think it's maybe like a pressure valve release too, where you're, like, allowed to if you complain
Yeah.
about it, it's almost like it's within your control and you're not trapped in it or something, maybe. I don't know. I think it's connected also to this analogy I came up with not came up with, but, like, white women being the safe parent in an abusive household in this new a good white woman, a well-meaning white woman is the safe parent in an abusive household, but, like, then all of a sudden the man cheats, right? And then all now she can't believe he's so terrible, and now she wants to talk about how terrible he is, and I can't believe da 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 da, and you're like, "You can't believe? He's been abusing all of us this whole time, but he cheats and now you wanna talk to me about how
Yeah.
terrible he is." It's like, well, yeah, why was it okay until now? And I
And
think
this
that's
is
the state
like
of things.
every time I talk about single family cults, I always say, it's usually headed up by a narcissist and an enabler, both of whom are abusers. And that very much fits in with like the cult theory of like all adults are perpetrators, right? And I
Mhm.
think that applies really well to white supremacy, that like everybody upholding the system is part of perpetrating this like violent system on each other.
Yeah, we end up being in that triangulation situation, right? Where we're and I think even like tipping culture is triangulation, at a corporate level and corporate as a culture, country, blah, all that same thing, but it's like we're just looking at each other, or at least you guys are, and keeping, just not sure, but understanding it is helpful for me. But enablism is a word I think I made up because I get the red squiggle when I put it. But it's like, yeah, I'm not talking to the racists or e-racists as I'm gonna start calling them, because one, I could get white supremacy and e-racism that are really bad, right? But I'm not talking to them. They're not listening to me. I'm
Yeah.
talking to the enableists and to fight enablism and to not be that person. And where betrayal trauma comes in is the belief, like we've said, the belief that you would do something different or that you wouldn't do this harmful thing of silence when this is happening, or saying, "Well, I don't wanna get in the middle." You don't wanna get in the middle? Well, now I'm confused. We talking about sides. Purple. What? I'm a person. Can we deal in that first? Well, okay, so if he's red and you're blue, no. Trying to keep the peace. Whose peace? A frictionless something. But maybe that's where the complaining comes from. It's like, I wanna be able to say this is bad, but I don't want anyone to push me to expect more from myself? Other people? And just that whole one flesh of it all
I
maybe, I
mean,
was thinking,
I
like,
think that whole thing of like expecting more, I think that's super interesting in at least like white American culture and the way you're not supposed to stand out. So from husband women, right? I've been asked this question like, "How did you get your husband, so like, open-minded, hugely feminist, blah blah blah, equal labor." And I'm like, "It's a decade of hard conversations." Like there's no like just like simple answer of just like
right.
how you get there. It's the hard work. And I've noticed, it was the first time I experienced this was when I joined the army, and I was gonna go into the army, so I quit smoking, I started training to run and work out, and then I went into the army and I was like a good runner. And so women would ask me like, "Oh, have you always been a good runner?" And I would be like, "No, I like literally just started. This is what I did. This is how I got here." And that I started to notice that wasn't what they wanted to hear, because that was giving them homework. Right? In a culture in the army where we are all judged on our running speed, by the way. So that's the context for that, right? And so I thought, and maybe this is
Where
the
are you going?
neurodivergent,
Why does running speed
right? I I
matter?
know,
What
I
are
know.
you running for? Sorry. Go ahead. I just realized that. I'm like, "Hold
We
on."
even had that conversation where like your career lives and dies on your 2-mile run time, and like you're not running 2 miles in combat. Like what? what is happening here, right? It's just arbitrary. It's the random standard that they picked, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's to me what I was trying to show people. I was like, no, like anyone can get good at this if you just like focus and blah blah blah. And obviously not anyone, but the average person who's in
yeah,
shape,
yeah.
like I would be like, you could do this too. And that's not what they want to hear. And I've noticed this throughout kind of American culture. It's why people don't like the kids that are getting A's, because like there's somewhat of a desire to
Wait,
be
they don't?
just coasting, but that's not what you're supposed to want in America, right? You're supposed to want to be up there at the top. And it's so much easier to just be like, "Oh, I could never."
Yeah, what in the white? I could never. Like, these declarations of negative abilities, but like you're a victim and you're asking and you're like, I'm jealous of you. Shut would you guys chill out for a second? No. But I realized because you can't chill out, it's also connected to something I've noticed with relief. I had talked about relief with Kamala, which I was like, why y'all relieved? And then people got mad at me about that. And I was like, the seeking relief from
Right.
what? From what? And it's from your own self harm, right? The self imposed suffering that whiteness has given to you because it's not external and it's not going to go away if you just make a little more money. Like, that's not going to get the shame out because that's got to be what it is that you're looking for relief from because what has happened? But you're looking for saving and relief and, princess treatment.
Yeah, and,
You're
like,
fine.
holding up a violent system, you know?
Wait, hold on, you cut out. Holding up the violent what?
I was just saying, like, relief from, like, holding up a violent system, right?
Yeah.
I think that is very challenging, and, like,
I wish they would see it as that, but
it's weird to
it's not.
explain, like, you know, because of being a veteran, honestly, like, I interact with a lot of women who are married to other women, and every time I meet one of them I feel every time some woman on my following basically is like, "Oh, my wife," I immediately feel this, like, I would not say it's jealousy, but it's this, like, "Oh gosh, it must be so cool to live completely outside the patriarchy," kind of
Oh,
feeling, if that makes
yeah,
sense, right? And
yeah.
obviously that's simplifying it, right?
Mhm.
But, like, it just must be like the code switching that you have to do to communicate with a man all the time and like the way you have to mostly guide them into modernity and like all these things we're figuring out, and even my husband at one point it was like 7 years in and he was just starting to be like, yeah, I'm a feminist, okay, I get it. And he one day he looked at me and he was like, babe, if you had to do this with like every guy you've dated, and I was like, yeah. And he just goes, "Oh, that must be so exhausting."
Yeah.
And kind of the whole, like, way you have to teach them and make the case that you're a human too, and sort of the
Mhm.
same a lot of the same stuff you talk about with race, right? And so I get this sort of, like, outward looking into, like, it must be relieving, right? It must be a relief to have a, like, full-time partner who is not a man. Who is someone that you
Yeah,
don't have to sort of always
but
be on
you'd
guard
be
with,
surprised.
right?
I think yes and of right, because it's like I'm dealing with that now, hence the not dating of it all for me because I've always dated Black men, but I don't know how much was what do they call it? Compulsive heterosexuality or
Yeah,
normativity or whatever. I don't know. Can I figure me out first? That's where I'm at. But I never imagined like having to explain so many things about blackness. However, he's a man, right? So you may have two women dating, but are they both white? Ooh.
right.
Is one white? Ooh.
There's gonna be
That's
so
why I'm
many
just like not
dynamics.
doing it all, right? Because there's still that. Then there's the internalized, the perfectionism. You got all these other things where I once was like, being pro black is never being with anybody that's, not black, but you gotta be open minded because also, I don't know, in community and proximity, those are the ones most likely to hurt because black men are also oppressed and seeking power struggle, but they're men and,
There's so many
there's that.
dynamic.
Yeah, and history and ho it's it's
It's
funny, it's like,
hard.
I talk
It
about self-imposed suffering. You wanted to I talk because I know, right? I I would say camera trauma. You would be surprised. I have a lot of camera trauma. My dad was a photographer, but not the like, "You look great, keep going." It was like zoomed in, "Look how you keep closing your eyes." It was a problem. Now, why in my life have I dated multiple, more than 2 black photographers and had them want to take pictures of me just so I could suffer through the whole thing? I don't know. But I chose what's familiar. We seek teeth that match our wounds, blah, blah, blah. Being looked at,
Yeah,
poked at, zoomed in, and critiqued in this specific way. Yeah, I'm not saying that as a point, but it's like, this is what we do. So we gotta stop. But even if you get rid of one,
figure
here comes
ourselves
something
out.
else, you know?
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons I think it can be so challenging to actually maintain these, like, primary relationships while you're doing the work of deconstructing,
Mhm.
and I mean, I had this conversation with my husband many years ago where he was like, "I feel like you're changing and you're leaving me behind." And my answer was, "Yeah, babe, I'm changing." And I think I'm gonna be changing my whole life, I was like, "I
Mhm.
love to read, I read so many books, all of them change me, like, I don't." So at that time, I sort of
Yeah.
challenged him, I was like, "I'm gonna be changing, I need you to decide if you can try to keep up." And it
And it's
really
not a
sort of
fundamental
changed.
change, It's
Right,
like you're
but
still who you are, but and there will be new levels to your learning and knowing and how you reflect and
I think it's that thing where you are like, when you are specifically actively deconstructing, you're having so many experience of, like, now you see it, now you see
Mm,
it, now you see it, and it feels very heavy, and it feels very, like, when a partner is experiencing that through someone else, I think it
mm.
becomes like, I mean, and
Here,
this could be
yeah.
on me and how I do things obsessively, right? And I get obsessed with something and I'm gonna go figure it out and I'm gonna read all these books and I'm gonna then come talk to him about it. But I think it's just that. It's like, how much are you gonna change our lives because now you're seeing something that you didn't see before, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
where I'm like, I think I'm
Okay.
always the person that I was, but it just takes time to, like, have all these different
It's a little
things
bit
and
more
figure them out.
like the old changes are more overt and intentional, and I think that feels less in control for some reason
Right.
because it's like who knows what it could be, whereas
And
before,
so
we
that's
never had
yeah,
control, you know?
because that's what
So
and that's what I think. It's like everybody changes, right? Nobody stays
right,
the same. If you stay the same,
exactly.
you're doing something wrong. But we
Mhm.
have this idea that what kills relationships is, like, they became a different person. But, like, in reality, everybody's changing all the time,
Yeah.
right? Like, everything you do makes you a different person. I think it goes hand in hand with they knew what they signed up for, and it's like,
Mm,
no, they
mhm.
don't. When we changed from we are husband and wife inside this kind of hierarchy world system to being like, we're basically each other's person and we're doing life together. And we're like just going along and seeing what we find and, like, changing things, and,
It
like,
reminds me of that
it's
thing
kind
you
of
said
exciting, you know?
about the picture or, like, the outfit that you would rewear the same thing from your wedding day or something. It's like,
Yeah, to not
why?
change rather than just change it
Why?
up with you as you go
Remember who that
along.
was? That person knew way less than this person knows. We don't look towards the future, and I wonder if sometimes that's, like there's, like, this doomness of whiteness, and, like, I made doom an acronym of no, I don't remember. Something of delusions of objective morality, and just, like,
Huh.
we're all gonna rapture, or the end times, or the giving up, or someone's gonna come save us. We don't look to the future and think, that person will have more information, and we'll
Yeah.
be able to figure it out. We're like, "No, let's plan tomorrow, today, and then today, let's focus on
Yeah.
yesterday and how yesterday sucked so that tomorrow can be better." What?
Yeah.
When
I
today
think that's one of
happened?
the things I'm trying to tell people when they're like, "Why are you not more, like, visibly scared right now?" And I'm like, "I've already survived so much. Like, if you put me back in these horrific situations again, I only have more, like, more strength and more skills than I had before."
And my confusion is, if you were freaking out, why would coming to the internet and telling everybody about it be the way to go? I feel like there's not
That's
enough
what I said.
questioning
That's what I
from
keep saying. I keep
the
being like, "You all
consumer.
are you keep waiting to see my hair on fire, and that's never gonna happen because when my hair's on fire, I'm not on the internet."
This is what I'm like, "Well, white people, I need you to zoom out, you're too zoomed in, and realize, what? That doesn't make any sense." And are black people not freaking out because they've never experienced hardship? No,
No.
right? We're not freaking out because we know the answer isn't 1, freaking out. Like, they think there's this thing that the threat is the ultimate fear in whiteness because you never actually experienced the thing. So you're like, the threat of it is a thing. So I'm
Yeah.
like, is that a threat? And they think that's getting someone. The
Yeah.
threat is the
And
insinuation of an actual action.
I also think, I've been thinking about this a lot, and I think there's so much in, like, American whiteness that is like, if you don't have your picture perfect life, it's not worth living.
Yeah.
And whereas in Black American culture, I think just like there's no level of depth that humans can sink to, one, in like their cruelty to each other, and like the human ability to survive is pretty incredible.
How did our ancestors make it through all of that for us to come and be like, but guys, they don't like us? That's not what's happening. And I think there is actually a fundamental thing that when I first started my anti-racism journey myself, I guess, when I still thought like, Jane Elliott is doing something. And she's in this room and she's like, how many people in this room, all white people, would like to be born black? And no one wants to be born black, right? And she's like, so you know what it's like, or you know that they're being treated poorly, and why do you tolerate it? Okay. And that's the whole like kind of gist. And I remember being like, exactly. Okay. But as time goes on, you realize, wait, but you ask black people, if black people were in that room, would they want to come back black? Yes. They don't want to come back white. That's the white centered narrative. We don't want to be white, especially the more we find out about you. The only people who want are delusional, right? We're delusional that you actually have a good experience and have a good time. That's why it's delusions of white supremacy. That's why I like calling it delusion of objective morality because, like, what do you think you know? Like, why do you think you just and that's weird. So yeah, I have evolved feelings about the Jane Elliott of it all. Because did it work? No. Shaming white people for not experiencing marginal. Why are you yelling at people? Why are you yelling at people? I'm finding ways to talk to white women and I'm not making them cry. Well, I don't know. They don't
And
cry at
I
me.
mean, but this is why I think that like, you know, so I've said I get the question, well, you're white, so why would you want to take down white supremacy? And I feel like so often people go straight to the moral argument. Well, like, Rebecca is just as good as me and blah blah blah. But I just go to like, because it's not better, right? Like
Right.
ultimately humans are selfish. Like white supremacy is not better for me either, right? Like I'm better off in this system than you are. But if it didn't exist and we were both just treated equally in the system, it would be better for both of us.
Yeah.
And to
Because you're
me, like,
miserable too. I don't want to be up there.
if you've ever seen that list of like all the things Black people have invented, and I'm always just like, I'll just read a couple things off that list and be like, now imagine we weren't dealing with 400 years of oppression
What I'm
on
saying.
this one group of people. Like, imagine what they would have. There was another thing I was watching, and I forget who it was. I think it was Josh Johnson, but he was like, they start talking about like all these Black people popping up and things and being so good at everything. And he's like, yeah, Black excellence is the standard, right? It has just taken so long for people to get into, but you see, as soon as they were allowed in sports, boom. As soon as they're allowed in music, music has always been stealing stuff from black people, right? I think. And like
Even their
it
inventions, a
and
lot of them, ours, like, they just took it, and they were like, "That's my property, who made that thing, so that's my mac and cheese recipe." You know, and we know this, though, and I think that's what I benefit so much by reading, like, I'm reading Beloved now by Toni Morrison, and just knowing that in Black culture, it has always been known that we are people, and these people want us to feel like we are not, and that's gaslighting, even though we don't use the word or haven't, doesn't matter. It's realizing, like, yeah, it's not better for you. I don't want you to argue on behalf of my humanity, because if I'm in the place of convincing someone in 2025 that racism is bad, like, I'm not talking to you. And that should make them feel weird enough to be like, wait, I want people to talk to me, and maybe they'll get it together. But to be like, well, see, DNA, I made a Patreon post about this one video that I saw this woman say, this is probably the most controversial video I've ever made. She's wearing an American flag. And really, racism is all based on fallacies. And this is the most controversial video she's going to ever make. And she doesn't care. Right. And she goes into melanocytes and the science behind the DNA of melanin. And it's just a chemical. And some science words. Science, science, science. I don't know, guys. I think I liked it better. No, I don't know. It feels like, why are you justifying it? And I'm not
yeah, it
saying
also
this
just
is
feels
that
like
person, but
you're
I'm
out
like,
here being like, hey you guys, black people actually
yeah, exactly. And I'm like,
I just
ew,
found
I don't like this. Girls are actually just as good as boys, guys.
I try to describe about like being in the would just be like, oh, women can't do this. Like, oh, women can't be in combat. Like you just wouldn't be able to. Or just like you can't. You have to have running water every 3 days for periods. What are you talking about? And just like
They're doing you a favor. They're helping you out.
just like being like, no, like it's so weird trying to convince someone that you are basically an equal human to them. Oh
It's
my
odd.
gosh. You know what I got this week?
Well,
I got a comment of, you know, I know you think you're doing some really heavy anti-racism work here, but by Rebecca's own words, she's not a black person. She is mixed race. And I just couldn't. I was just like, oh my God, we're not.
excuse me. See, let me speak for myself. See, that's weird. I call that BO, right?
And
That's a
right.
borrowed outrage.
It was also like, this is coming on a whole week of white women
They just need
telling
you.
me that something is not racist,
Yep.
right? And I had an interesting realization, and I don't think like it's you're gonna be like, duh, obviously, but it was just like to put it into words, right? Because I was like, why does this make me so uncomfortable?
Mm,
Like all these white women rushing to assure me that like she's not racist. And I'm like,
right.
I know that I'm not listening to them. Like, I know that I'm listening to black women. Like, why is this upsetting me so much? And I was like, oh, because I don't think the words "this is not racist" should actually ever come out of the mouth of a white person.
There you go. Like, who?
And it's
How
like,
could
it's
your
so simple.
brain?
It's so simple. And it's just like, and I made a video about it today because someone else was like, well, all I've seen is blah, blah, blah. And I was like, how many? How many black people does it take to tell you that something is racist for you as a white person to like agree?
And if that were true, wouldn't you be finding one in the comments right here saying that? Why do you
Right,
have to say it for them? That's what I'm saying. We don't need translators. No one needs a
right,
translator.
right.
Why are you speaking for anybody? It's this white people I'm speaking for. I put that in my Swiftie versus the Beehive. I'm going to do a part two because the Swifties speak for and are spoken for, right? It's like she doesn't speak, she lets people speak for, and it's all about being spoken for. That's like romantic type shit. Whereas um, Beyonce and the Beehive speaks to something and speaks from a place of understanding. Speaks with the community. We know what's going on. Speaks to the moment, not just for other people or to, ah, yeah. The white people saying what is and isn't racist. Uh, I'll just say men of women, right? Because if
Yeah.
a
And
man
that
say no,
was
it's not about.
obviously, that was my analogy. I was like, when I went to write a book, right? I was like, I don't care how much money I'm not working with a male editor, right? Because, like, I can't. A huge undercurrent of my entire book is sexism, and you have
Right.
to basically trust me that it's all gonna tie together and have its parallels and have whatever, and I, like, can't deal. I literally was like, "I cannot deal with the mental exhaustion of having to convince a man in charge that, like, these super hard stories for me to tell were what they were," you
Right.
know?
Or
Like,
like you need to
I
be
literally have
told.
a story that I read out today where, like, I am sexually assaulted by a man I'm trying to sleep with. So, like, just explaining that to a man, I couldn't. They would not, I don't think, take me seriously in any way, shape, or form or understand that at all, you
And
know?
your experience of that is actually more important than what he would do or not do. Like giving him the benefit of the doubt that maybe blah, blah, blah. Why? When you could just reduce that chance by so much. And I was thinking about this with you and I and just like privilege showing up places, like your ability to form a team is going to be much easier than mine, right? I remember starting this whole thing. And the reason that Christina works with me is not because of whatever reasons. It was like it took me a really long time to be able to understand who I could talk to about my work, right? I can't just bring someone on who means well and, a white woman who's like, "I will definitely do this because now I'm weird talking to her." I'm just
Yeah,
like, "Can I?" I care. I don't wanna make her feel bad. I don't want her to be like, "Well," or her say something weird, and now I'm like, "Uh-oh." Um,
right.
but then even,
I have really thought about that as far as, like, when we briefly talked about doing guests and you had sort of said that, you're like, "You're already trusting me, and that is a lot of trust, and we're here, like, doing the work for that trust." But,
yeah.
like, as soon as it's a random.
Oh, just thinking about my version of it, like, before we had done a call with these white people, and I was like right before, I was like, "Uh-oh, do they know what I'm like?" Because I can't control it, like, I literally can't. White people this, white people that, I can't, um,
Yeah.
but
When we were on that panel and she said she was a big fan of yours, I saw you just like, "Oh, your whole demeanor changed." Just like,
yeah,
"Okay, good. She gets it." Like, I'm not gonna be
that's
faced with a
relief.
hostile crowd.
Right.
I've been this is what I've been trying to do so far with the knit-in, is kind of like demonstrate that, like, "Hey, white ladies, like, we are not powerless,"
Right.
like, I am a random white lady, and I can fully believe that I'm gonna be able to go put 100,000 people on the mall in DC and, like, not have it turn violent, like, we can just
You
go
can
out and
do
do
things.
ridiculous stuff. Have you seen, I wanna say it's Josh Johnson again, who has this bit about how, like, white ladies can go drunk up to a cop and take his hat off his head and dance around in front of him, and he's like, "Only a white lady," right? Like, only a white lady in a bright sash with a few other white ladies behind her. That's, like, the
Yeah.
only demographic of person that could do that and not end up in jail.
You know what's funny? Is like you're also the only demographic of lady that can just get drunk in public and feel. Because I remember we used to go out, me and Christina, obviously, and my homegirls, and we would go out. Okay, and then we started going out in Hoboken, which was like pretty white at that time. And my goodness, the sloppy one. How do you do this, ladies? But all the girls are drunk. I think I've talked to you about this, and like when I noticed the difference between friends and like a friend group and white friends and black friends. We don't leave no one to do nothing. You drunk, we're going. All of you are falling down on the sidewalk. I can't like the danger associated with that is is another reason white supremacy hurts you because for whatever reason that's
Right.
happening, it was happening regularly when we went out there. And who's watching out for you guys? No one.
The answer is nobody. I
And
was
what?
it
Then it's us.
there's this statistic in my book about sororities, which obviously are gonna be largely white women. Sorority members report being assaulted 4 times more than their non-sorority peers, and I'm pretty sure that it is 1 in 4 for the non-sorority peers. So I feel like that means it's 100%.
That wouldn't I mean, because it's set up that way.
Right.
It's set up. Greek life, corporate life, back to the Greeks and the gay. I'm so done with white men and every time. The Gre I complained about the phrase hanging over my head because I realized I don't like it, having this thing hanging over my head. Whatever, just, not a big deal, but just like, ooh, and thinking about how we use that and like, that's our
It
lives, that's
comes from
America.
a sword. It comes from a sword hanging over your
Yeah,
head.
I didn't know
Damocles
that.
sword. Yeah.
Democles what's with white people in the anyway, with your swords and
Greek
your
Greek stuff, Greek stuff.
what the and I'm like, "Why do you guys know this? You don't know this, but you alright, you know this, but not how to wash your legs." And that's really the problem of it all, in that, everyone coming, "I thought it was about the sword of Damocles." I don't know. I don't care.
They're like, but it's a sword. You're not saying like, why is there a big knife hanging over my head
Like,
on
you're
a
not
hair?
making it
Like,
better.
like
Is it
it
like
was
the
actually the
intention
sword of
of
so and so, and not like, hey, there's a sword hanging over your head that might fall and kill you.
that's bad,
It's
guys.
that kind of thing.
Yeah, maybe we should talk about how you feel that way, how you guys are using this, because I thought it
It's
was
the
maybe
vi There's
carrots.
so much violence in the language, all of it, right? It just is. That's where it comes from. Speaking of language, I have to tell you, like, I just got answers for, like, racist language that's been going on with me for 20 years, and I didn't understand it. So,
Wow.
I think last week we talked about how, like, the white girls came for me when I started critiquing Taylor Swift, and they were like, "You didn't even grow up here, and they're like, "You were don't understand America, you don't understand MAGA, you weren't a real Christian, and you grew up in the jungle."
Mhm.
And I was just like, I don't know how to describe it, but I didn't know you could be racist against white people. And then I got 2 answers. One person just said xenophobia is when you're being racist against your own race. And I
I
was like,
never really
holy
understood
f
what xenophobia was. I'm like, "Where does X
it
come from?"
means fear of outsiders.
Okay.
Xeno comes from Greek, again, I'm pretty sure.
Oh my god.
So it means fear of outsiders, right? But if a white person is treating an African that way, they're gonna say it's racism, right? So
Okay.
xenophobia is what I've always been treated with American white people. But and then somebody else said, and they said, "And any time it's a white person and they're talking about in the jungle, that's very specific language, that's very specifically anti-Black." And I was like, so here's what's happened with me for 20 years, right? I am translucently white, but I'm weird, right? So white people are trying to figure out why I'm weird. And it comes up that I grew up outside of America and that I grew up in Brazil.
Mhm.
And I immediately I will start getting questions about the jungle, about the Amazon. I was asked once if I had a loincloth back in high school. And all of a sudden, I'm like, oh, right. It's like they're trying to slot me into this hierarchy. And the hierarchy includes like, oh, you grew up over there with the brown and Black people.
Yeah.
Like and it just like it just makes so much sense now, because then of course we go from there directly into what we've talked about before, which is but why, Daniela? Like, why do you choose to be a
Yeah.
spicy white person in your life when you could
Yeah.
just like you could never tell anyone that you grew up in Brazil? Why not just say you're from Texas?
Yeah.
That attitude that I always like picked up on, but I never kind of had the words
What would the
for it.
benefit be anyway? You'd be like us more. And then we wouldn't ask you weird questions like this. What if you just didn't ask the weird questions? What if you would stop it? Like, that's such a weird question. Why are they so bad at questions? And I value questions so much. And, it's like they use them as either, I've also been thinking they use questions as like a command and like, but with deniability.
Okay, so I know how to answer this because it's about sameness, right? So growing up in the children of God, like when you met other kids, you were just friends right away, right? No matter what age we were, all the way up to teenagers, you were just automatically friends because we didn't have any culture of asking you questions about you or your life because we were all, in theory, exactly identical. right? We all had parents that believed the same there was nothing different going on in people's house. I mean, there was obviously slight differences from commune to commune and country to country, but it was just like new people would show up, and by the evening, we would all be absolute best friends, right? Couple things about this. That's not how it's supposed to happen, right? You're supposed to get to vulnerability slowly. So it very much jacks up your community meters. I think this is one of the reasons when we get out of cults, like we don't think something is community unless you're like in a 4-hour conversation of all of your traumas with someone the first time you meet them, you know? And then we don't know how to make friends with people that aren't like us. So because we don't know how to ask questions and we don't know how to take in that information and be like, "Oh, okay, cool. I've never seen that before, but great." They talk about like for so many people like going to college is very interesting because you learn what things people think need to be refrigerated. Just, slightly different depending on what your background is.
Hmm.
So,
Wow.
yeah, all of that. Anyway, I have been
That's so interesting. But the
I've been
anti-blackness of it all.
understanding a lot about how, like, I was
Sameness though, but, like, you don't
I think I
have
was
any.
dropped into America as almost this little kind of blank sponge, if you will, in a lot of ways. I just happened to already be almost 16. And all of a sudden, it was like you get the messaging from white America and non-white America. And I feel like I've just been on that road my whole life.
So interesting. But it's
But
like,
I will say this week I was like, if you ask me, because the way white women been acting, right? I was like, even if you were forcing me right now to pick white women or black women, like, I don't think I'm picking white women. So, like, it's
that would be the worst plan. Listen, I'm telling you, and I did, right? And this is where I'm like, what kind of business model am I running? I'm like, white women, please, and knowing them. But I just keep, the patterns. I'm trying to break
well,
patterns, you know?
It's hard because so you're in the place where I was when I was trying to do well, I wanted to do business consulting, but I only wanted to talk about like the bad, rotten stuff and how your group is toxic and why things are falling apart. Right? Because and what I realized is like, oh, that's like asking CEOs to do therapy in public,
Mm.
and you are like
See, I
again, like
thought I was not doing it in
when
public.
I saw the name, I was like, this is exactly what I fucking want. Like this
It's
is what
private
I look
too. Right.
and no, right, but you're asking people to pay you for you to tell them what's wrong with them, basically, right?
Yeah.
So, in that
Okay, quit
way,
asking.
I
But no.
just I
Yeah.
just think it's a harder challenge,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I think I have stood my ground with being like, "No, there's so much value from those of us professional Cassandras who just help you diagnose the problems." But I'm telling you, when I switched from I wanna consult organizations to I don't care about organizations, I'm gonna go help individuals understand what's hurting them,
Yeah.
that was so much easier.
Well, that's what I'm trying to do, but I guess white women don't see themselves. It's just that, because white women will pay for certain terrible things and people to tell you you're terrible and whip you into shape and stuff. And I'm like, I'm not actually trying to do that, right? I'm trying to make it help answer the question. So those complaints that white women have been having, they're walking and they're marching and they're wearing their pink whatever. And I'm like, all right, you want to know what happened? You don't explain Trump by being like, and you guys did so good,
I
but
also I also think it's like so first of all, there's a fundamental misunderstanding of deconstruction, and we know that, right? But I think there's a lot of white women that like want to be out of the cult of white supremacy, or maybe they are kind of like have left, but they're not doing that deconstruction. And I
yeah.
think, so I had a moment this week. I used hypothetical harms. I cited you. But, so because I was basically saying like I there's no way that you can justify to me Taylor Swift mentioning a black woman, like that or like there's a whole diss track that's assumed to be about Charlie XCX, which she in part compares her to a dog. And Charlie XCX is an Asian woman. She's a part Indian woman. She's not white, right? I was like, there's just no situation where that can be justified for me. And so somebody asked me and they were like, look, it is a really honest question. What does that mean? What are we supposed to do if a Black person harms us? And they finished the question with, just in the beginning of deconstructing whiteness. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to take you up on that. And I'm going to suggest that maybe you need to focus on the reality that as an undeconstructed white person, you're harming Black people all the time
Right.
versus what is gonna happen if someone
What about
harms you,
yeah.
right? Like that hypothetical. And I just don't think there is that understanding, right? I think there are so many kind of like good left liberal white women who have not only like never had a subconscious or a conscious like hateful thought, but who actually like don't think they are problematic.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm getting to the point where, like, I've now been doing this for 6 years, right? Sort of like active anti-racism slash deconstructing whiteness practice. And I'm starting to realize it's like, yeah, like how could you possibly know all the ways in which you are hurting non-white people and all the ways in which you are upholding this system if you haven't taken years to deconstruct it and do the reading and do the work.
I guess I'm trying to also, like,
So
shortcut some of it. Like, I want it not to be so academic and inaccessible feeling, but it's like, it's not. I mean, when
well,
people ask me
because it's
about
also
your husband, it's, like, similar, where it's like, yeah, but also having someone you care about is gonna do more motivating for you to do the change than not, and maybe that's why I gotta get
yeah.
more to being the professional Black
Well,
friend, but white
because
people
it's
can
not
piss
a
me off.
shortcut. Because it's not a shortcut, because there's no shortcut. You're just trying to get them to do the work without realizing they're doing it,
Yeah, I'm
and
kinda
that
like,
is
"Trigger."
I think that's most of deconstruction, like, I was, like, 5 years in when I was like, "Oh, this is what I'm doing," and I knew that because I literally study deconstruction and write about it and have a model for it, right? And
Yeah.
so,
You don't
then
wanna
again,
decide.
when it comes to, like, deconstructing Swiftianity, I'm like, "Okay, I'm gonna do this." Like, I know what I'm getting into. I know it's gonna be much deeper than I think. I know it's gonna have, like, all of this different stuff. But the first time, like, I just thought I was walking away from a ideology event and choosing to live,
Mhm.
right? I
Right.
didn't realize I was choosing all of this. And it's one of the things I've been saying that I'm watching. I've been through this moment myself, and now I'm watching it in a bunch of other white women where it's like, nobody tells you that when you click on white privilege to learn more, that like if you are a good person, you're not going to stop until you're dedicated to tearing down all the system. And I don't necessarily
Yeah.
mean that anarchy is the answer, but just like understandings that all the systems are problematic and that it's not
Yeah.
I think in the beginning there's this idea that like I'll work on myself, I won't be racist, I won't be a problem, right? But even that, right? Like racism is systemic,
Right,
right? Like
it's not about you all the
I'm not
time,
gonna be
right.
bigoted and prejudiced, and I'm not gonna hurt people, but that's not enough if I'm also
Yeah.
not trying to take down the system.
And they're
So
already
that's
so
the hard
tightly wound, and so they think
right.
I'm coming in to give them more rules or something, or like, "And you're not doing it good enough after all that." I'm saying, "No, drop all that other stuff you were doing. It wasn't even working." Throw the baby out with the bathwater. But see, that's your saying. You deal with that. It's like it doesn't have to be all lectures, and I don't know. I do like the accessibility of the lessons, but I think there's something there to it where I could come at it a little bit. If I remove myself from TikTok, it helps me come at it more friendly and more like, hey, see how, but then they come online and they complain, and I'm like, okay, this is what I'm saying. Is like I get caught up because of like you asked for help. You said listening and learning and tear down the system. And I'm saying, okay, this is
I
how. And you're
know.
like, not like that. Oh,
I think it's a balance too of like figuring out what works for you.
Yeah.
Like people come at me sometimes about my tone, and I'm like, well, you can go find someone else out there explaining the military to the left, or you can deal with my tone.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
there's a certain level of like, I'm creating the content that you're asking for, so just shut up and
And if you put on a
take
tone,
it.
that would be weird. Like, if you acted
But
like
there's
not you, or I guess maybe what they want is a more regulated version. I don't know.
I
I'm
mean,
still
I
trying to
think
figure
what they want
something
is a
out.
book, as you said.
Yes! Yes! They're confusing me with a book.
I want a book that's not gonna have attitude with them, that's just gonna, like, give them advice, but
They're like,
not
"You don't
I
finish sentences."
swear I
I know.
swear people like it when I read my book to them more than when I just answer the question, and I'm like, I wrote this,
You could
like, but
it's
it's just like
this is the
they're not
same
they're
gosh.
not having to deal with it like I'm the expert or I'm the one. But let me tell you this about tactical frivolity because I think it's true for you too. Like we've all been hearing about this. Have you? No. So like going out to protest in blow up costumes.
Okay.
Just like at the actual like there's critiques of it, right? But the actual parade of it all, right? Like making it this thing which like people could bring their children to is like tactical frivolity because you send a bunch of soldiers against us, you look really, really bad.
Mhm.
And I realized I was like, I think my whole brand is actually tactical frivolity. Like I've
Yeah.
always said this, like, I'm very aware that this lady with her Brazilian necklace and space buns crocheting is not like giving former army captain who's like written all these books and done this stuff. But you didn't need to underestimate any woman. You didn't need to come in here assuming that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
And
that's what
it's
yeah.
like for the people who get it, it's great, right? Because like you look really silly coming for me because you made an assumption based
Yeah.
on my outfit or the way I presented myself. So
Hmm.
anyway, I
Yeah,
think
and
you're
I
in the
think
same category in a lot of
yeah,
ways.
especially, like, when I'm
Like we're
playing with a
both
friend
doing
and I'm
this.
having,
Like
like, fun conversations with my audience, which I do like to have, but then usually someone comes in and makes it weird, and then I'm just like, "See, this is why I can't have anything fun." If I'm making a little joke or trying to explain something black to white people, which is not my it's not great. It's not easy, rather. And then I'm, like, trying not to give away too much. And then someone comes in like, can you actually care about me and do this weird thing?" And I get my whole thing thrown off. But yeah, I think, yeah, figuring out the balance is key. And that comes with being able to slow down and not and fight the sense of urgency to like figure out what is it? And that's where the book really stresses me out because I'm like, what am I giving to that? To who am I? I'm a black woman, and black women don't need certain things explained. And what I do often is explain things about white women to white women. I don't want black women to read this and be like, so, but then if I make it about me, then they could associate with that, and I can make it about the white women who I've come across in life and whatever. But people are like, but what about the words? You made up all the words. So I'm figuring the
yeah.
balance out
I
here.
mean, take your time to write your book, right? Because a good book is such a great product. So I would say don't rush it. But
Fair.
I
Yeah.
I think you know it's like this white ladies. I did this exact same thing, right? It was like statistic in 2020 that was like the majority of white people, 75% of white people don't have a non-white friend. In 2020, 75% of white people did not have a non-white friend, right? And I immediately just went to like, okay, how do I fix that? Like, where do I go find black women? And I just stopped myself right there because I'm like, no, that just gives hunter imagery. I don't like it.
Are
Clearly,
you
that's a
hunting
problem,
black women?
right? I'm glad I knew enough to just
Yeah,
like
you just
have
gotta
that
let the
conversation
clock go,
with
hear it out.
myself. But I've been asked this sort of thing many times, right? And it's like trying to get to the end. Like, how do I like the reality, even to that question, right? The reality is in the future, if this hypothetical harm happens, if you are harmed by a black person, you're going to know so much better how to deal with it. If you've been doing the anti-racism work, if you've been deconstructing whiteness, if you've been all of these things, right? So
Yeah.
it's like, one of the answers is just it's not about you trying to solve the problem, or the problem wasn't why are people of color not being your friends,
Yeah,
right?
it's not a
The
problem
answer
to
is why
solve,
are you right. It's
when I think we get
a
there.
problem. I think there's a lot of things that are problems that solve themselves
Right.
as you
Address
do the work. And as
right.
you make
What is the
yourself
issue?
less problematic,
Mhm.
the problem is gonna solve itself.
Exactly, and you can't jump in there like the god of life and be like, "I'm gonna now change the course of things," and I think there is just a lot of
Yeah.
objectivity in white people where they think they can just plan and say, "This is exactly how it's gonna go," because y'all talk to each other in that future fakey whatever and sell
Right.
psychosis essentially because it's a break from reality to say, "This is exactly what's gonna happen." Why do you think someone would
Right.
know that?
I
That's
know. That's
if you were to answer her question, what do I do if and when this what could your answer have
that's
been?
actually what I'm struggling with, and because I wanted to, like, build a class where I walk you through sort of what I've done, like, if you want to do this, but how do you do that without, like, like, I think that there's information that is valuable that contains no future faking,
Mhm.
but our society, for one, is not sold set up to be sold to that way.
Right.
Whereas,
That's
like, I can promise you you'll be better prepared, but I can't promise you any breakthroughs. Like, that's not what they want.
right.
Like, they want
Guaranteed
X, Y.
results or whatever.
It does make me wonder. I know we've talked about the book club thing for you before, and I know you'd have to do, like, you probably have to do some very good vetting,
Yeah.
but a way to get, so, like, I have very successful book clubs that are basically deconstruction conversations, and it's people who want to be there. People are self-selecting, and they're doing the work. They want to be there. It's not,
I know, but
they're
Daniella, they're
paying.
not all like so here's the thing, and because I even had I only did it once. I was gonna set up this whole like in a consult type of thing, right? Back when. And it's not that they're gonna do anything wrong necessarily, right? But it's like I care a lot. I humanize people a lot. Sorry. So I'll care. I had a friend, professional black friend service where we could talk and I could just like help you through whatever the thing is. I get on the phone with this girl, supposed to be like 30 minutes or maybe an hour or something. It's like 3 hours later. I still think about this girl. I can't, and if I'm in a book club, it's also like more numbers for me and feel, I don't, because what if they want to come in and then
Yeah.
they say like one thing? And that's why building a team has been like the idea of that is almost like impossible for me. I'm very sensitive. Also because I'm listening to white women with the research ear as well, so I want to hear it, but then I'm like, "What is this about? They just said this one weird thing, like, yeah, but if I say thought-terminating cliches to them, they're not gonna understand it." And that's them agreeing with me, right? Like, if I did a reading from Cultish and I talk about because 'cause I'm getting comments on this video from, like, years ago. I'm talking about thought-terminating cliches, and I'm saying, "See, if it were me and someone is coming at me, with whatever, and I hear them say a thought-terminating cliche, I would tell them, 'This is a thought-terminating cliche.' And then we could talk about that, and I think that would do a lot more help than arguing it or just whatever. It was just a suggestion. But the amount, to comment and say, "Well, they won't even understand what that means." That has been sitting with me for a week because, 1, that's how white people talk about black people, right? To 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 go to "they're stupid" or "they can't read," because people said that about binary thinking as well when I said black and white, I just share my little I just think we should think about how we say black and white, good and bad, which one's good? And people said, "Yeah, but binary thinking, if white try to say that to my family, they're just never gonna" it's like, this is why I get to give up and never do anything, it's like complaining about
Yeah.
these racist
But I
idiot
also
stupids. But I'm like, "I hate
think the
this."
thing is, like, well, you have to teach them, Like, I always tell when people are like, "Oh, the cult members are not
Right.
gonna understand that," I'm always
So
like,
what are you
"I'm not
doing?
here for them, I'm here for you." Right? And, like, you have to teach your people binary language. Like, you have to teach your not you, Rebecca,
Yeah,
like,
no,
the
I'm yeah,
people doing that, right? It's like, you
absolutely.
have to make a point. It's like, I have a thing with the word guys, right? I don't like it. I don't use it. It would be really crazy of me if I was here taking tons of offense to it, but I didn't, like, set that standard, right?
Mm,
I already did at the knitting, by the way. I was like, we're gonna try to use knitting folk and crafters. We're gonna try
I'll
not to
try.
use the knitter word,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, and then got it, got it.
I was saying, I was like, we're gonna
Okay,
try to
okay.
not use that language, and we're gonna try like, we're obviously it's gonna get used. I'm not gonna be policing people, but I'm like, for my team, I'm gonna set the standard. One, also just for inclusiveness, crafting folks. We're trying to get everyone out there, you know?
Yeah, it's just due diligence, like, it's not, life or
But
death, that's some white people stuff. We're not trying to
there's
murder people for
always
saying
with
the wrong word.
language, there's always this, like, why we can't do it, why we can't, and it's like, "No, but you can. You just."
Right. Back to what you were saying about like, "Oh, I wish I could whatever." That's like, I'm here talking to you. And I think so many people don't see me and zoom out and see I am talking to generalized white women about anti-racism, and you can't say the word binary thinking to someone? Is that too hard? You guys are telling me I don't think it's racist. That's you what? It's like there's so little consideration for the fact that I'm here doing this and I have been
It's
for
like, how
years. It's like, what did you where do you think I'm getting this from, ladies?
that's something I think that people really don't understand, I would say, about content creation. It's like they think they are an individual interacting with you, an individual, but I always say, like, every once in a while, I'll respond to a comment and someone will be like, "Well, that's a bot." And I'm like, "I don't care."
I
Because by
hate
the time
that.
I'm responding to a comment, I've usually seen this comment so many times,
What's that?
or like somebody will do something and I'll be like, "That's misogyny." Like, the fact that you even asked me. Why? So you would never have asked me if I was a man, right? And what they don't understand is, like, I know that because I do this job every day. Like, I'm
Right.
the one here getting these questions. Like,
I
nothing
see
is
the
unique.
patterns.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're
exactly.
pattern seers and we have all the data. I remember telling them, guys, listen, I'm telling you, you're a community because there's zero other people doing exactly what you're doing over and over and over again. It's so weird. And I just came on here trying to be like, hey, let's talk together. And so much of the work became about telling, like realizing the culty aspect. So, like, when I started thinking it was going to be one thing and realizing, no, all these blocks that are up, what is that? And then I like understanding that and sharing it and letting white women talk about it together, but, like, that's a you thing.
It's the calling of the bluff too, because this is like, that's how I feel like what I decided to do. I was like, okay, everyone's talking about culture, right? Like, corporate America says they care about culture, they care about leadership, they want things to be better, they want to take care of employees. Okay, I have to do all of that. But,
Yeah.
like, maybe that's also part of our, like, neurodivergent, like, believing them when they say something, if that makes sense. Because,
Yeah,
like,
I
what
see what you
I
yeah.
figured out is I don't actually think, like, there's a few companies that want to be good, right? Like, maybe Patagonia really does want to treat its employees well. But for the most part, like, it's not true,
Right,
right?
right,
It's
and even yeah.
lip service. It's just lip service to values, right? Enron had the word integrity carved in marble outside their headquarters. So
I
that
see,
was one of the issues that I came across, that it's like,
and I
at
was
the
seeing
same
white women
time,
as a community
though,
organization. Got it.
I know that there are white women that want to be better and want your services because I am that person. But
Yeah.
there I hope it's not that rare. I mean,
Anymore.
and I would say that I thousands of white women that have followed me on my journey of deconstructing whiteness and have read or listened to Un-American or The Top, right? That, like,
Yeah.
engage in these topics with me. So I feel like there are a lot of women that in theory want to do this work, like want to have these wake ups.
Yeah. But
But
then also and I'm also from the East
there's
Coast.
also that bit of like having stuff softened for you by a
Right.
fellow white woman.
Right. And I don't
But even that is like a fallacy, right? Because first of all, you're much softer than me.
right. I'm also really nice.
I don't soften things very well at all, and, like, you don't really
Right.
need softening.
Right.
Like, you're not there's even that, there's this implication that, like, it needs to be softened, and that, like, a grown ass white woman can't hear a black woman just be like, "Stop, you're doing the racism. Don't
Right.
do that."
And it's not even directed at anybody in particular. It's just saying it clearly and like, we've been talking about you, get it together. You got a booger all over your face. So see, I hear it. I hear it when I say it. But that sounds like love to me.
But it goes back to that thing of, like, they don't want nobody likes having cracks in the brainwashing, right? Like,
Right. Right.
nobody I feel like every once in a while, like, I feel really heavy after these conversations.
Yeah.
Usually, I enjoy doing this work. I enjoy doing this work. I enjoy unlocking things. I enjoy having these realizations. But every once in a while, it's something that like rocks my core probably or something that I know I've done so many times or whatever else. And then it's
Yeah.
just like you feel heavy, you know? And I see this with my husband who's very open-minded to being educated on patriarchy and sexism, but that doesn't mean that like when I tell him some stuff, it's not a hard experience, if
It's like
that makes sense,
you
right?
gotta sit with it.
And
Yeah.
and and just the, like, as white women, we have been told we're supposed to be good, right? We're supposed to be the good people. We're supposed to be trying to be good, whether that's good grades, whether that's good evaluations, whether that's just, like, feeling good about your self-concept, and, like, you're not gonna.
Self-concept.
You know, it's like
Yeah.
even with the Taylor Swift stuff, people keep trying to shame me. Like, "Why did it take so long? Why did I was like, "I know I'm not gonna feel good about a lot of this stuff." Like, you don't need to, like, that it doesn't to do the work, it doesn't require you to feel good, and by doing the work, you're gonna feel good,
Yeah.
but you're
You'll
not
feel
gonna
more
get
resilient.
to that point. Like the simple fact of like getting freaking compliments from black people on literally anything is one of the best feelings in the world, I think. Especially the more I know about white people and the complicated history and all of that. Like when I get a
Right.
genuine compliment,
You have
it's
to think
amazing
about that you're white.
and that feels good.
And
But
that
you were
means
never
more right. Absolutely.
I was not gonna get there without years of not feeling good, right? So that's and this is true in every deconstruction. Like this is where it's similar, where it's like you're gonna literally crack, you're gonna break open, you're gonna have to go back through your whole life and like see these different contexts. But like in the end, it's better.
Right. You're like,
In the end, it's
who's gonna do it? You gotta do it.
you know,
So, you know?
I keep using the language of like the book I'm gonna write about this someday.
What? Yeah.
I used to even when I was in the army and I would be like, sometimes it's 4 in the morning, it is pouring rain, you're sliding down a hill of red mud with a red flashlight on your head and a piece of paper you're trying to keep dry and a rifle. And it's just so freaking miserable that the only thing you can tell yourself is like one day this is gonna be a good story for my civilian friends.
That's actually really scary. That's actually really
I
scary.
know, I know, I know.
No, I appreciate it's like the both sides of it because agreed, but also the amount of white people writing books is because they're miserable. That's what I heard is,
Yes,
because you
yes.
guys got like 17, 19-year-olds writing books about
I
how to
agree.
do
I
life
agree.
and so that's interesting.
I should say when I say that, I kinda mean, like, the lessons I'm gonna get out and, like, the concrete, good physical things that
Well,
I'm
that's how
gonna get
you're
out of
using it, but I
this.
do think
Yeah, yeah, no, no,
there's something to the worship of the written word and, like because my brain would have never thought, "I'll write a book," by the way, either. I don't think black people are often thinking there's lots of,
I
reasons
also
why it's
think
different. but,
I
like
also think that people write their books way too soon.
right,
I
I'm
tried to write a
battling
book
those
when I
things.
was 24, like, the piece of garbage that I was actively writing. But also, ever since I've been 15 years old, people, white people mostly, have been telling me, "You need to write a book." But, like, I didn't. I needed to live about 20 more
I
years,
needed to heal.
and then I could start thinking, yeah, and then I could start thinking about
That's
some of
interesting
those.
too. I'm gonna think about that. I'm gonna be thinking about that for a while. Like, you went through something really hard and you made it through. You should write a book.
Write a book right away, and that's exactly, like, I one of the things I've been talking about more actually, especially now as I'm kind of in my, I think a little bit my prime, like, I'm very productive, I'm in my zone, I blah, 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 and a lot of my people are like, "But how? How? You were so traumatized." And I'm like, "There is a whole decade here in between the end of my book and me right now in
Yeah,
which I was healing." You know, and
right.
it's like, it's not what doesn't kill you make you stronger, right? What
No,
doesn't kill you just broke you. Then you have to have the time and the space to actually heal,
yeah,
you know? And then you can go out and do all these things and, like, transform your story and all that, you know? So
yeah.
that's why I'm like, you know,
We like you said, like, you have to go through
at
the hurt
this
and the
point, now that
healing
I
and
know the process and I know who I am, you know, and, like, yeah, I'm gonna go through just music trauma, right? Like, that is the thing that has dominated my life that I haven't had the time or space for, and now
mhm,
the issue is being forced, so I'm gonna make the time and space for it, and, like, I know that a decade out of here, like, there's gonna be so much better, more amazing things in my life and so many takeaways from it that it's
yeah,
like, I'm not even mad. I'm
and
just kind of
yeah,
excited to get the deconstruction workbook that I made and start,
right, because
doing
time
it.
moves forward for you versus using it to say, "Okay, what does this mean about everything I was and
Yeah.
stuff?" And,
Well,
there's both as you
even
process.
interesting, someone asked me this morning, they were like, "Do you think you'll ever write a book just about your experience in the cult?" And I was like, "No, that's the exact book I didn't wanna write, was just, like, let me give you all my trauma and
That's what it
then nothing,
'cause what do
you
you mean?
know, like, and then she
Detail
survived." Like, it's like,
they said, "Tell me more about the worst parts."
I literally had, yeah, and it was like, I literally had to go get more, and I, in fact, think the best trauma books are when you can tie, like, a whole other thing into it, right? It's like I had this super crazy experience, and then what? Then there's the so what, and the so what is kind of what matters. And I just think you need time. Like, I very much agree with the decade.
Mhm.
The writer of the Crown actually famously said, you know, he said he wasn't gonna write about Harry and Meghan, and he was like, "I do not write about anything that's not at least a decade over, because history hasn't actually decided what that story is yet." You know, or, like, I think about, like, all the people that named their kid Khaleesi before Game of Thrones was
I
over.
was trying so hard not to bring up the Game of Thrones. I tried so hard because, I just, like
I'm
and
kinda
I've had
thinking
people
I'm
be like,
gonna watch
"You
it
have to talk."
again now from, like, your perspective. I'm like, "Oh,
Let
we might need."
listen, and then someone said, you might like the book." I've been listening to an audiobook. She's 13 in the book, and so, I don't know, I stopped because she's 16 in the thing. It's still bad, right? But it's I don't know. I I'll just go from the show point of view because that I've seen so many times, but I
think
could do it.
there's a space for talking about things as you're going through them that I think is helpful, and, like,
Mhm.
you and I kind of do that. Like, we talk about our breakthroughs and our realizations as we're having them.
Yeah. I think
But
that
I
is important, not just the
also
after,
think
like
you usually wanna be done with a project before you write about it, if that makes sense.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
I don't
and
know,
that's how
right
it's
now
felt
I'm
like
actively writing about something that I'm educating myself on as I'm writing about it, and it's hard.
yeah.
So it's not like, I'm not saying there's no space for it, right? And it's so, like, especially with stuff like passion, right? Like, you're never gonna get back the passion or the emergency or the electric feeling of right when it happened, which is
Mhm.
why like having journals or having, I always say if I hadn't thrown my 4 years of journals away, Unculture would have been a very different book because I would have had some of those like more drama, more kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But the time for everything to settle, like
Yeah.
the way I am so grateful that Un-American did not sell to a publisher and I didn't have to actually deliver a book about deconstructing whiteness in a year, because first of all, 3 years later, when I took it out and recorded it again, I was like, "Okay, this is all aged well. Like, I'm going in the right direction. I'm glad hey, I did the work." Like, I
Mhm.
did say, "Oh, I gotta do this work." And then I did go out and do 3 years of work. And I think when it comes out another 2 or 3 years from now, like, it will be a much deeper, more considered book than I found out my ex-husband was a white supremacist a year ago, and here's the book I wrote about it.
Yeah, it's a little bit just, like, in the "whoa" of it all, like, there can be elements of talking about what that was the "whoa" part, but then, like, the settling and the healing and the going back and seeing stuff is important, and I always felt like to feel I don't wanna feel rushed. I know people want stuff, that's a good thing, but, like, I'm figuring it out, and I guess that's fine too, and that's why Patreon I like with the video access, it's like you get to be a part of the journey as we figure it out, because I don't know everything. I'm not a white lady. I didn't know you guys were so different. I thought I didn't, you know? And so that was part of it, because I thought I was gonna come in and just, "We're all the same. We just want what's best. You just happen to be white." Nope. Nope. Because Christianity, and I think that
No
was
universal woman's experience, right?
nope, nope,
Yeah.
and that's a beautiful thing, but yeah, it's messy, and I was saying the other day, it's like healing itches. It doesn't just hurt. There's, like, an
Mm,
itchy part where you're, like, you gotta resist the urge to maybe dig up some stuff, and then if you do start to scratch it, you gotta stop yourself and pause and let
yeah.
it go, "Well, I started scratching, now let's just go into it." Pull up the whole scab. "No, no, no, stop. You can stop right now."
Gotta, like, know yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Itchy is okay if
Yeah.
it's healing, not
Yeah, and it's
anything.
like it's getting better, like itching is better than the pain, but it's still not completely healed and there's
Right.
still
It's all
like
part of it. You
just
need the
different
itching.
phases.
Yep.
Yeah.
Let the scab sit, but you can't rush it off. You can't like we were saying, you can't just be
For
like,
all of us that are pickers, yeah.
"I've been
Yeah.
there. Listen, I get it." And I only say the things that I know. I tell people I don't give advice, I just share what I think. And I think that's the other part about a book that was hard is like, I'm not writing to tell you guys what to do or what is true. I'm just
I think
yapping.
this is what's so funny, and this has to be a neurotypical thing because 'cause I've been getting it my whole life, the whole like, "Ugh, you always think you're right," or like, "Nobody could know this much," and I'm like, "Yeah, I think I'm right because I only speak to things that I have experience with."
Why would I
So,
start
like,
talking if I wasn't
every time people are like, "Oh, now you're an expert on this," and they're trying it with Taylor Swift, and I'm like, "Yes, yes, been doing it for 20 years."
what
Like,
kind of answer
I'm
did you want?
I'm sorry that I have so many topics of interest and, like, I can apply the things I think about to so many things, like, what you're upset with right now is how my brain works. But, like,
And like I
I
only
don't
speak when I have
like, there's
something
a reason you
to
don't see
say.
me out here explaining simple science processes because I don't know them and I would be wrong.
I stay in my
So,
lane. And
yeah.
you're okay with saying, "Oops, I was wrong," and I think that confuses people. They because they're used to a big blow up of an issue, especially in content creator spaces, and when in reality you're accountable, you just go, "Oop, my bad," and it's not a big to do, so they miss it.
But that's one of the things people are trying to get me with Taylor Swift. Like, oh, now so with the Maddie Healy thing, and I was like, I thought I knew what they were talking about, and then it was over and it wasn't a big deal, and I was wrong. I should have looked at that much closer a year ago, and I wish that I had, and I was wrong. And I'm gonna look at it now. And that, like, this brings me to a whole other thing, right? Which is that attitude, people just let them stop it. People let it stop them. And I
Mhm.
wish people wouldn't have that attitude but I more just need people to know that you can't let it stop you. Like when you are learning some stuff. And I especially think for white women, like as you learn, you should go witness to your fellow white women. So like as you have these breakthroughs, you should go pass it on. And every once in a while, someone's going to make you feel really somebody's going to be like, "What? You didn't know that? What? You didn't?" You just be like, "Yep, Roger,
You
move
got
on,"
me.
you know? Like, I wish I had known before, and there's a great, I wanna say Angela Davis quote, right? Who says, like, "We do as best as we can, and then when we know better, we do
We
better."
do, yeah.
And I in no deconstruction community have I ever seen, because that's the whole other thing is like this theory that you're gonna get canceled, which I think is so funny because I'm like, you're less likely to do something stupid if you're actively working on it. But I've never seen anyone hold someone against something who was actually doing the work. You know, you're actually doing some of the work and you do something wrong, or you uncover something that you did wrong in the past that was very problematic. And I've never had that be like a huge issue, and
Who's
that's
who
what
got time?
everybody's afraid of, right?
Who's got time to stare at white people doing white people stuff? Like, a white person in the
People
past?
and
Get out of
and
here.
this is a great message, and probably we can close off here, is just like, non-white people just want us to do better. They don't wanna actually rake us over the coals for doing worse in the past. So, if we are, like, committed to doing better, it's gonna be fine. You're not gonna feel good about it every day, but
Right, there are
in,
people
like,
being
years.
actively harmful. We know the difference between someone actively seeking to harm someone and someone saying something they don't realize sounds different than what they're saying. Like,
Yeah.
we can see we have guys and ears, and racism isn't a problem to be solved, and you feeling bad doesn't make black people feel better. Like, there's nothing to be gained by white
Right.
people's
There's no
feeling.
point to try to make us feel bad. It's just
I get nothing out of it. Just, I'd rather you be like, and maybe some people are sadists. That exists everywhere, but like,
yeah.
your
Take it seriously.
guilt
Do the
isn't.
work.
Yeah, not
Yeah.
personally, but seriously, and come have fun.
Have fun.
Yeah.
Good conversation.
Mm.
All right. Thanks so much, friend.
Thank
This has been
you.
great. I have literally just been repeating, like, I've just been saying, like, well, of course I was going to have a different relationship with this Taylor Swift album. Like, I've been doing 90 minutes of like deep conversations, deconstructing whiteness for over a year now.
I know. That's why I was kind of like, what is gonna happen? And it's like, well, I guess
People
it's
keep being like,
working.
"This was so sudden from you," and I'm like, "But is it though? I don't think it's that sudden. I think we all
It's
knew
just,
something
phew,
was
that
gonna
was my kind of
happen."
relief, right? I was like, okay, we're in this part now.
All right. Thanks so much for listening, everybody.
Yeah,
Go follow Rebecca on Patreon for amazing insights. Thanks for being here and doing the work with us.
thanks.